3, 2, 1. Real. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rxan Smith, and welcome to the Rxan Smith podcast. Get your umbrellas out. I'm about to brainstorm. Let's go. Somebody's got to do it. And notice this deafening silence on the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade. I have a couple things to say. Number one, I'm going to continue to preach that this left side and right side is just a collection of people that refuse to make decisions for themselves and neglect the God-given ability to choose and have choice and have an opinion. And it's more like they follow politics as they follow sports. They root for who they're told, and they root for their team. And their opinions are who the coach of their team tells them, what the coach of their team tells them their opinions are. And 90% of you fall into that category. You don't like it? Fucking change it. Until I'm going to continue to remind you, sheep, that that's all you are. You want to be intellectual? Earn it. Thing with abortion, right? Woman's body, woman's choice. If I had to pick, keeping in mind this was something that the United States citizens never voted on, I would have to vote to make it legal. Simply because the prohibition of most things, and this is one of the reasons abortion became legalized, results in nothing. People do it anyway. They find ways around it. So whatever we do to alter the laws to make it harder, people are going to find ways. And, whether the country thinks it's right, wrong, moral, immoral, it doesn't really matter. Really, this law just affects poor people the most. But here's the thing, left wing and right wing. I have watched so many right-wing pro-life advocates when it happens to their family and their daughter gets knocked up and is in a spot where she is not financially or emotionally or physically ready to raise a child, all of a sudden they're in favor of abortion. And on the left, I have seen so many people bash a man for having an opinion that the baby should be aborted because the woman wants to have a kid to have cute pictures on Facebook. Here's the thing with this issue. No one on the left is really okay with it. It reminds me of a judge that has to sentence someone to death. That's their duty, and they should be loath to do so. But they have to, sometimes. So, people on the left, reframe your issue. Get real. Don't act like you are completely okay with the thought of aborting a fetus because it's not a real person and life doesn't start until a certain point. You're not okay with that. You struggle with it. You might bury it deep down, but you struggle. And on the right, guess what? You are more vocal and put it out there like you're champions of the cause, but you're full of shit too. Because, like I said, when it suits you, and, under the right circumstances, because don't forget, we always put it out there, cloak ourselves in religion on the right? That's what everyone on the right does. Yet, someone's raped, the baby's going to be born with a mental disability. Now the rules change. What happened? What happened to God now? What happened to your excuse when you have no explanation for anything else in life? God did it. God's will. The excuse, that you guys use when you can't use critical thinking. God did it. What happened? It's okay then? God doesn't count for those occasions? No one's okay with it. And it should be something we could come together on. But, I'm not going to hold my breath there. I'm going to talk about the Supreme Court. Because for my entire life, Supreme Court has been the soul of this nation. It has been the voice of the people. They make rulings. If you read them, they say that it's a national consensus against a national consensus for certain issues, and as time changes, they tweak and amend laws to evolve with that national consensus. But I'm here to say, those motherfuckers, all of you, you're not all get out. Every one of you gets up there when you're confirmed and swears that you've never even thought about how you would rule in an abortion case, if, because let's not forget, until recently, every single one of them was asked that question because, basically, have you ever thought about what you would do if we would overturn Roe v. Wade? And not one justice ever claimed they had ever thought about it. No perjury there? No? Justice Scalia infamously tried to rule out that Exxon Valdez oil spill after 30 years of not paying out the people affected by it with their drunk ship captain. He decided that, I remember he was stomping for the idea back in the day when he was still alive, and I guess it's not fair to attack the dead, but what do I care about fair? That they shouldn't be held liable even though they knew he was a drunk. Who better to captain a ship with 530 million gallons of crude oil across the ocean? The Supreme Court should be made of stronger stuff. That's what I think. So let's start there. All right, guys, Anchor.fm, my home podcast platform, my favorite of all of them, by far. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's by Spotify. It's their podcast wing. Has everything you need in one place. Let me explain. It has all the tools you need to record or edit the podcast right from your phone or your computer. There's so much you'll see on YouTube about needing this microphone, that microphone. No, Anchor has it all right in the app. I'm telling you, the quality that it can pick up in your voice right from a normal phone, it's unmatched. No app I can download can record with the precision of Anchor. And when you're hosting on Anchor, you can describe your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple, Google, Radio Host, even more. It's just everything you need to make a podcast, guys. It's all in one place. It's the best. And guess what? It's completely free. Download the Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. Once again, anchor.fm, that's ANCHOR.fm to get started. My point, the Supreme Court hasn't for a long time represented the will of the people. And I'm going to go back. Let's say, the right to bear arms, the regulations on guns, whether for or against the Second Amendment. Everybody is for waiting periods and a little more restriction when obtaining a license for an assault rifle. They refuse to touch it because the NRA is so powerful. Death penalty. What do we have? 5 states that have authorized the death penalty in non-homicide cases. But, there's no national consensus there. 45 states wouldn't even dream of killing somebody that hasn't murdered someone, and we're not going to put it into federal law. Not to mention, there's been a moratorium on states that it is legal, such as my home state, New Jersey. It's legal there. I think in the 70s was the last time they actually executed somebody, and there's a lot more states like that. Technically it's legal. They're not going to go and change the law, but they're also not going to sentence anyone to death. It's like, like I said, they declared a moratorium. And the Supreme Court's not going to recognize that. We're going to join the ranks of China, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Uganda. That's the company we belong in. That's the will of our people. Are you kidding me? What about the simple fact that I have always loved that when the case is appealed all the way up to the United States Supreme Court and it makes it to that high level, that the attorneys arguing the case are not free to amend the record that the Supreme Court works off of. And just for those of you that are familiar with the process, the record is the verdict. So if there's a coked up lawyer in Texas that's sleeping through half of the trial, and his client, who has no proof to have even been at the murder scene, is found guilty and is sentenced to the death penalty, which Texas proudly leads the country in every year by 50% or more as far as executions. They are not free to even raise innocence as a part of the argument if that unconstitutionality is brought before it in that particular case. And, I can see the wisdom in that, because otherwise you would, I guess, just be using the Supreme Court to try a case. But, really you're going to actually ignore innocence when you're deciding on a capital case? That's something that people in that courtroom with the red drapes, that beautiful Hall of Justice that's supposed to represent the soul of America, that's what those people are made out of? That's what they're bringing to the table? You kidding me? I mean, am I supposed to be fucking impressed? Oh, and it's not political either. Of course, the Supreme Court, they are not, it's not political at all, even though it's never, to my recollection, happened that a Democrat has nominated a conservative justice or a Republican has nominated a liberal justice. There's no politics involved there. Donald Trump nominated 3 conservatives, and that, to the Republicans, is, regardless of how they actually feel about Trump, makes him a hero. It's funny because it's just dumb luck who gets to nominate justices, who retires, who dies. Every president should strive to get somebody that's a moderate. That would be the best way to do it. It's the one thing that's still not broken in our system. The fact that Donald Trump can get elected after Obama, when it seems like Hillary is a lock and they're going to have a 16-year liberal renaissance. You know what? I am not a fan of Trump, not a huge fan of Hillary, but I am a fan of experience in any job, and whatever experience Hillary had, whatever experience anyone running against Trump had, trumped Mr. President Trump's experience. And you know what? They would have made a better president because they would have actually known what they were doing. But it's good because it swings back and forth, left and right. It keeps the country balanced. You don't necessarily want 16 years of a Democrat in office or a Republican in office. You don't know what can happen. And the Supreme Court justice nominations are one of the very reasons. So as much as you want to do away with the Electoral College, all the things that people want to tweak, here's the thing. You only hear the left stomping about that and the right trying to prevent it because, that's been well known for a while. If we did away with the Electoral College and just went on a popular vote, you would never see a conservative president again. You know, most of this country is socially liberal, and social issues, because this country especially has become too stupid to understand fiscal issues, um, especially the government and the Fed. Um, they just keep putting everything on the fucking credit card and let the next generation worry about it, even though it's, you know, fucking uh, just heaping down on top of us, chasing us down as we speak. Let the next generation worry about it. Hey, it's here, idiots. So the whole country, the electorate and the elected officials are all too stupid to care about the fiscal part. So, you know, social politics is what we elect presidents on. And like I said, this country would never elect a socially conservative president if we went by the popular vote. That's not good for a democracy. It's the one thing I'll give Mitch McConnell credit for saying, not in the context what he said it, but he says that this separation, the divide, is good for government. I know what he means. He means when there is, you know, two sides that almost hate each other, that's good, because that's how a democracy works. It keeps a balance. You know, God forbid he can articulate that. He's probably gets stuck in his fucking turkey neck. But anyway, back to the Supreme Court. And like I said, I'm going to even go back in history because, you know, the newer justices haven't had time, but give them time. They'll fuck up. You know, Justice Scalia. He was on that duck hunting trip, the infamous duck hunting trip when Cheney gets shot in the face. He was on that duck hunting trip with Cheney while Cheney was involved in a Supreme Court case being heard while Scalia was on the bench. Didn't really avoid the appearance of impropriety there, did he? And he didn't seem too concerned with it either. At the same time, Judge Alito, he never would recuse himself in terrorism cases that were brought before the court, even though his best friend was Michael Chernoff, I believe his name was, and at the time he was the head of Homeland Security. So Alito and Chernoff, best friends. He doesn't recuse himself in terrorism cases when his best friend's the head of Homeland Security. He was caught at that same time that Cheney shot himself in the face. I remember hearing a case involving like $500,000 of a company that he was invested in. I mean, the Supreme Court. This is the Supreme Court of the United States. Clarence Thomas once went 143 cases in a row without saying a single word. Without saying a single word. Are you kidding me? Is that something that we need up there? Is that a brilliant mind that he reads magazines during some of the cases? He claims that he has already done his research before. So if, you know, that's possible, why even have lawyers stand there in front of the panel and argue? But let's keep going. The Democrats, the near, you know, nomination pattern that they have gone down. Obama did a really good job, and was it Neil Gorsuch? No, it was Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland, his last nominee, was a you know, great pick, and man, I hope I have that name right. Gorsuch, Garland, Merrick Garland. I'm pretty sure Merrick Garland, and he's the one that, you know, was nominated but never sworn in because the Republicans pulled some bullshit that the Democrats never would because it's inappropriate, you know. And when they go low, we go high, which means we lose, they win. Great strategy. At least you have your fucking dignity. Not like any of your woke fucking supporters are gonna notice or can even spell dignity, but their spell check will take care of it. Anyway, Merrick Garland was a great pick, and before that, he did a great job because he started the trend breaking lines of women of color. Was Sotomayor, I believe, was the one from, I think she was a Latina from the Bronx. First, woman of color to be in the Supreme Court, and that was necessary. It was time, and especially considering he had beaten Hillary, who, people forget at the time was the heir apparent. The first time she was the heir apparent and fucking lost to Obama, when she couldn't even get past the primaries. But anyway, then it kept up, and now it's like that's all Democrats will nominate are women. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying, sometimes you have to have the best qualified person. Is that is that so outrageous? Man, I still hope Merrick Garland is not Neil Gorsuch and vice versa. Anyway, man, I hope I don't get that name wrong. I hope that's not one of the actual justices that I'm mixing up, but I think that's right. And now he is obviously the Attorney General. And if I get that wrong, sorry again. The concussion, the memory, gotta forgive me. But look who we've nominated recently. Just women of color. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but Democrats, you have such a habit of doing this. I'm all for affirmative action, but do you have to only go as extreme, as you can? You have a president that's dying in office, and the person that's backstopping him, you think she's qualified to be president? She's no more qualified than Trump. Sorry, I know that's not a popular opinion, and I have nothing against her, and I think she has all the potential in the world, but, the President of the United States right now, Joe Biden, is getting things done because of his experience. His vice president is there for looks, and that's often been how the vice president position has been, constructed. They don't really have much duty and responsibility, but when there's a real chance that the president can die in office, you need to be cognizant of that shit. And, the way politics works, what do you think is going to happen if he decides to step down and not run for a second term? Do you really think there is going to be a candidate that can run besides our current vice president without, the left raising fucking hell? No, of course not. They're gonna fucking make it like it's her turn, like it's a goddamn monarchy. The thing that the Republicans used to think we needed. It's worse than the fucking liberals abandoning free speech for political correctness. Everything's fucking backwards. And the Supreme Court is where it's all starting. Let's keep going. It should be made of sterner stuff, the Supreme Court. There are a number of remedies that we could seek that we do not. There's nothing that says there has to be 9 justices. Right now, if we really wanted to, if the Democrats take the midterms and Biden, wants to be ballsy enough, which he won't because he's a Democrat, but, you'd better bet your ass if the Republicans were in a 6-3 minority where Roe v. Wade was getting overturned, or let's put it in something they can understand, where the Second Amendment was getting overturned because there were 6 liberals, bleeding hearts on the. You really think that they wouldn't sign into executive order if they had the House, the Senate, and the presidency to put 11 justices, 13 justices, 15 justices, however many they need to stack the deck so they can vote in whatever they want as law? Are you kidding me? That's how they play it. It's how they've always played it. It's the only way they can because they're always outnumbered. But you got to give it to them. They play politics better than the Democrats. Democrats are just a bunch of pussies. And left, stop trying to encourage this civil war with the South. Your anti-Second Amendment beliefs are going to put you in a position of extreme disadvantage there. Supreme Court should be made of sterner stuff. Back to the point. In Kennedy's uh, short time as the Chief Justice, he has turned back the clock on civil rights, school segregation, equal protection, free speech, abortion, campaign finance, gun control. What else do we have? They've all been overtly and shamelessly pro-business to the point where the little guy and most plaintiffs can't even, it's not even possible for them to sue corporations. They can't afford to get them in court. They get tied up in pre-trial litigation for so long that they go bankrupt trying to sue for something that they would undoubtedly fucking win in a slam dunk. There's no anti-monopoly laws. There's far fewer countries and companies than anyone is aware that run and own everything in this country, not to mention the government. Corporations have run the government and owned the government for a very long time. Big oil, big tobacco, big pharma. Is somebody going to check these people? The NRA? What are these lobbies? You know, do you? They literally have been. There's been reports that they have their own, CIA type organizations working for the lobbies when anyone even threatens to, get on the internet and make a loud announcement against their interests. They will finance anybody running for an office. They'll finance their opponent heavily to make sure that they lose. This is not democracy, and it's not a republic either. I know that is a very popular refrain. I would love for the people that say it to explain what they mean so you can see them stumble over their fucking stupid, knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing, tongue-tied words. Who are these fucking people? They have transformed that court from being a governmental branch devoted to civil rights and liberties, protectors of discrimination, a guardian of government, and a slave to moneyed interest in big business. That's what they've transformed this judicial branch into. That's a fact. Does anyone out there care to spin it a different way, interpret it a different way? I would love to listen. And I mean that, listen. Not argue, listen. Because I'd love you to explain it to me a different way. The Supreme Court was designed to be free and unadulterated by politics. It's now dominated by it. They're handpicked by presidents with ideological agendas. And of their last 50 decisions that had a 5-4 ruling, 43 broke straight across ideological lines. That's politics. And when they claim to be against judicial activism, they rewrote, check that, they invented a law to decide a presidential election when I was in college, for God's sake. Who are these fucking people? You know what? If that's the way it's going to be, fine. But at least have the decency to put your fucking names on ballots and let us vote. Not like anyone's going to fucking do that in this country, but that is political. And that is how that should be run. If they are not going to live up to the very intention of their existence. At least that way, we the people get a voice. In closing, on the front of the, since I'm in DC now, I walked past the Supreme Court building. On the front of it, it says, "Equal justice under law." And despite my tone in this whole recording, I want to say that I truly, truly always have been, and still am, in enormous awe of that institution. It gives me chills to see it up close. Like I said, elected officials represent the will of the American people, but the Supreme Court has always represented our soul and our conscience. My conscience And I hope theirs, since there are so many new members, simply can't reconcile things continuing the way they are if this country is to ever have any hope of seeing its tricentennial. What are you going to do about it? Alright, I'm done. This has been an Rxan Smith production. Good night.